Hey everyone, I'm Sharon Canava of Living Breathing Pilates. My Classical Pilates move of the month this month is the Swan. So here I am demonstrating the Swan. This is an exercise that starts lying face down and uses your back and arm strength to arch the upper body up away from the floor. First, I'm using a smaller range of motion. I like to call this the baby swan. And then I'm pressing higher into the full expression of this move. As always in my Move of the Month videos, I'm going to give you a full breakdown, including alignment, anatomy, and the common mistakes I see in my classes and privates. But because this one is a little more complex and all movement teachers cue it a little bit differently, I've organized this video around 3 key points that I personally use and feel are essential to understanding the Swan, and they all have to do with your spine. Key point number 1 is back extension. So back extension, more accurately spinal extension, is simply when you bend your spine to the back, like this. As opposed to spinal flexion, where you round your spine to the front. So it's important to recognize that when we're casually sitting or we're in kind of slumpy standing posture, it's a form of unsupported flexion of the spine. And that does put compression on the discs that live between each vertebra. So gentle back extension is really crucial to balancing out those lifestyle patterns that we all have. Some people, specifically those who've experienced back pain, have a little fear of moving into the direction of back extension because somewhere along the way they got the message that this would aggravate their back issues, but this is a myth. Moderate back extension is normal, it's necessary, and it's important to having a healthy spine. The key is a slow, gradual progression. So do this with me. Let's warm up the shoulders and the upper back and prep for the Swan. So my fingers are just lightly touching the tops of my shoulders, taking a big shoulder roll up, back, and down. And the next time you get to this back position, just hold it for a moment and see if you can feel the front of the chest stretching open. These are your pecs. And the front of your shoulders, which are your anterior deltoid muscles, stretching apart. Let's do it again. Rolling up, back, and down. This time, hold the back position and release your hands. It's as if your hands are flat on the mat. And I want you to really feel the work of the muscles in your upper back. You're squeezing your shoulder blades together and down. This is activating the posterior deltoids, which is the back of your shoulder, your rhomboids, as well as your middle and lower trapezius muscles. All right, one more time. Let's go up, back, down, squeezing the upper back, opening up the chest. And now let's add a little back extension. So remember, that's lifting the chest and bending the spine backwards. So this activates your back extensor muscles, specifically erector spinae. And you can release that. So let's take that down to the mat. Lie down on your belly with your legs straight, hip width apart and parallel. Lightly lengthen down your tailbone and slightly lift the belly button away from the mat for core stability. From here, you're going to roll your shoulders up, back, and down, just as before, and then add the back extension, specifically in the mid to upper back. Hold at the top, feel the upper back working and the chest opening, and then slowly release it back down. So that's the baby swan. So if you're struggling or you're feeling any tension in your shoulders and neck, you can modify the hand placement here by going a little bit wider, about the width of a mat, and pressing up from there. You can even bring your hands a little more forward until you feel more comfortable with that action. If you feel any pinching in your lower back, You want to first make sure your legs are truly parallel, so the heels are not rolling in towards each other, but all 10 toenails are firmly planted. And you can experiment with having the feet a little bit wider, which may help you to get that tailbone lengthening down away from your lower back and the little lift of the belly. So with the feet wider, you're creating a little bit more space across your lower back where your SI joints live at the back of your pelvis. So for common mistakes, the most common mistake I see is too much extension in the neck, which looks like this. Right? We want the back of the neck to stay long in the swan. Second most common mistake is to have the elbows winging out to the sides like this, which is often coupled with the shoulders shrugging up towards the ears. So this uses the tight front of the shoulders and chest muscles to push up instead of really activating the back body, which is what we're going for in the swan. Lastly, a common mistake is to dump into the lower back, what we call dumping into the lower back, which is just taking too much of the back bend right here across your lower spine. So if you find yourself doing that, you can just use one of the modifications from before with the hands or the feet. And as you lift, really imagine that your whole spine is like a jet plane, reaching forward and up, taking off the runway. So not going backwards, but that forward and up energy of a plane taking off. So this image brings me to key point number 2, which is axial length. So axial length is just lengthening through your body's axis, which is of course your spine. So when you hold this image of a plane taking off, reaching forward and up, you're really decompressing the discs in your back between each vertebra. I like to think of the lengthening of your spine as creating more space for the disc, as if the disc is puffing up, filling with air like little tiny balloons. Now let's discuss the full swan and key point number 3. Key point number 1 was back extension. Number 2 was axial length. And key point number 3 applies these two concepts to the natural curves that exist in your spine. So if you stay with me through this, I promise this is going to dramatically change your experience of the swan and all back bends. So your cervical spine, which is your neck, is naturally curved inward, as well as your lumbar spine, which is your lower back, naturally curved inward. So that explains why in back bends, it's so easy to kind of dump the extension too much into these two places. So instead, what we'll think about is axial length, stretching long and open to create space through those two regions. Now, the thoracic spine, which is your mid-upper back, is naturally curved a bit outward. So at this part of the spine, when we swan, we're going to really focus on back extension, as if we could reverse the curve in this part of our back. So the full swan, as I see it, starts with the head lifting off the mat, finding length through the neck, axial length, stretching those bones apart, lifting the chest and the rib cage, really working back extension, back bending through the mid-upper back. And as I start to lift the abdomen off the mat, I've got to really lift the abdominal muscles up in order to stay long through the lower back. And a lot of arm strength kicks in here to support the whole weight of my upper body and release it back down. One more time, axial length through the neck, back extension through my thoracic spine, strong abdominals and arms, keeping axial length reaching forward and up through my low back, even lifting so far as to take the front of my hips up, and then slowly releasing back down. To neutralize the spine after a big swan, you can take a little windshield wiper of the legs this way, or you can sit back towards your heels. Take a counter stretch by curving your spine into flexion. If you've made it to the end of this video, you deserve a fun fact, and I'm going to give it to you. The human skeleton has 7 vertebrae in the neck. This is your cervical spine, 7 vertebrae. So the question is, how many vertebrae in the long neck of a giraffe? And the answer is also 7. I learned that from my 7-year-old son. So the next time you're doing the swan or any exercise that requires axial length through your neck, you can imagine you have the long, graceful neck of a giraffe lifting up to the tops of the trees. So thank you for watching my video. Please subscribe, please comment. If you want to see my live teaching schedule, you can visit www.livingbreathingpilates.com. Until next time.